The ESP32 C Series is a series of single-core chips with a different processor architecture than the ESP generic and ESP-S series. They use RISC-V architecture. Currently, C2, C3, and C6 chips generally differ by the number of GPIOs and maximum CPU speed. ESP32 C Series is considered a cheaper version and a replacement for an older ESP8266. It has many features known from ESP32 generic and S family. Still, some are absent. For example, the C family is single-core, lacks digital-to-analog converter, and has no ultra-low power coprocessor. The last lack is not a drawback, as the chip can run in the ultra-low power mode that is very energy efficient thanks to the new RISC-V architecture. It allows an IoT device to run for months on the single battery. Significantly, the C6 chip also includes an additional low-power core based on RISC-V architecture. All C family chips provide Wi-Fi and Bluetooth 5.0 Bluetooth Low Energy connectivity. The C6 chips specifically includes an 802.15.4 radio that can implement Thread, Zigbee, and other IoT-specific protocols, as well as Bluetooth 5.3. Let us step a bit deeper into the technical details. The main C2, C3, and C6 processors are based on a single-core RISC-V architecture with no floating point unit acceleration. The C2 chip runs up to 120 MHz, and C3 and C6 chips run up to 160 MHz. The C6 chip, additionally, has another low-power core that is a 32-bit RISC-V architecture and runs up to 20 MHz. The ESP32 C2 single-core in-chip memory consists of 576 KB ROM for booting and core functions, 272 KB static RAM for data instruction, including 60 KB cache, 1 KB of eFuse memory with 256 bits reserved for device ID and encryption key. Depending on the chip, 2 or 4 MB of the flash is included. The ESP32 C3 single-core in-chip memory consists of 384 KB ROM for booting and core functions, 400 KB static RAM for data and instruction, including 60 KB cache, 8 KB of RTC fast static RAM, 4 KB of the eFuse memory with 1792 bits reserved for device ID and encryption key. Depending on the chip, 2 or 4 MB of the flash is included. The ESP32 C6 memory consists of 320 KB ROM for booting and core functions, high-power 510 KB static RAM for data and instruction, low-power 16 KB RAM, 8 KB of RTC fast static RAM, 4 KB of the eFuse memory with 1792 bits reserved for device ID and encryption key. Embedded 4 MB of the flash is included. The ESP-C series doesn't offer advanced interfacing with the camera as the ESP-S series does. However, interfacing is quite efficient for dedicated IoT and sensor network devices that do not require parallel communication protocols for high speed and dozens of GPIOs. The system is equipped with the following interfaces: 14 GPIOs for C2, up to 22 GPIOs for C3, and up to 30 GPIOs for C6. 3 SPI interfaces. In the case of the C6, there are 2 SPI interfaces for flash memory and 1 for general use. 2 UART interfaces. 1 I2C master interface. LED PWM up to 6 channels. 1 12-bit ADC up to 5 channels in the case of C2, and 2 12-bit analog digital converters with 6 channels in the case of C3. The general DMA controller has 1 transmit channel and 1 receive channel for C2, 3 transmit channels and 3 receiving channels for C3, respectively. C3 specific features include a 1 integrated inter-I2 sound interface, an integrated temperature sensor, and more security features, including a larger effused memory than C2. C6 specific features also include 2 CAN interfaces, 1 low-power UART, 1 parallel I/O interface, and temperature sensor. Several ESP-C2, ESP-C3, and ESP-C6 models differ regarding the number of GPIOs exposed and flash size in both C2 and C3. Interestingly, the smaller C3 chip is just 4x4 mm package. C2 and C3 models are available only with a PCB antenna or dual PCB with an additional external IPX connector, and in the case of other ESP32 families. Many development kits are available on the market, including those provided by the manufacturer and third parties. The offer is still limited compared to the developer boards with ESP8266 and other ESP32 families. Still, the C series is getting more and more attention due to its simplicity and energy efficiency. Some members of the C families use specific 4-digit chip numbers, so developers may need clarification when selecting a chip. In detail, C2 is known as ESP8684, while the C3 family has 3 versions, depending in general in the package size and number of GPIOs. ESP32 C3 itself, ESP8686 and ESP8685. The C6 identification remains without any substitute so far.